The wind was warm that afternoon, carrying the mingled scents of freshly cut grass, sunscreen and hot asphalt from the nearby parking lot. Children's laughter floated through the park, each squeal echoing off the bright yellow slide that towered above the new playground. I watched from the bench under a broad oak, my eyes never leaving my 8-year-old nephew Eli, as he maneuvered his wheelchair across the mulch-covered ground with quiet determination. He wore his favorite Captain America t-shirt, the one he insisted on every Saturday. His dark hair stuck to his forehead with sweat as he struggled through the soft earth, the wheels catching on stray pieces of bark. Each push strained his thin arms, but he didn't complain. He never did. I rose from the bench, tossing the empty Starbucks cup into a nearby trash can, and moved to his side. "You good, champ?" I asked, crouching to adjust his leg braces, checking that the straps were snug but not biting into his skin. "I want to go down the slide, Uncle," he whispered, almost shy about it. His wide brown eyes flicked toward the towering structure. "Like the other kids." My chest tightened. "Then that's what we're doing today." He smiled, a small curve of his lips that lit up his entire face. He placed his gloved hands back on the wheels and continued forward. I walked beside him, matching his pace, scanning the playground for potential hazards. It was brand new, funded by our HOA after years of complaints about the rotting swings and rusted monkey bars. This was supposed to be safer, better, more inclusive. As we neared the base of the slide, I noticed the wood framing at its base looked off. The screws were crooked, some sticking out at awkward angles. One anchor bracket was bent slightly outward, exposing a rusted edge. I frowned and touched the metal with my shoe, feeling it shift ever so slightly. A hollow metallic groan followed, vibrating up the slide. "Wait, Eli," I said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. He stopped, panting lightly, sweat rolling down his temple. "What's wrong?" Before I could answer, a shrill voice cut through the playground. "Oh, for heaven's sake. It's perfectly safe." Turning, I saw her. Karen, HOA president. She wore a wide straw sun hat, oversized sunglasses, and a tight lavender polo tucked into cream trousers. Her lips curled in a smile that never reached her eyes as she approached, clutching a clipboard against her chest. "Karen," I greeted coolly. "This doesn't look secure." She waved her manicured hand dismissively. "It's fine. I personally oversaw the installation yesterday." "That explains a lot," I said before I could stop myself. Her nostrils flared. "Excuse me?" I gestured at the bent bracket. "This isn't properly anchored. The contractor." She cut me off with a laugh that turned the heads of nearby parents. "Contractor? Please. Do you have any idea how expensive they are? They tried to charge us triple the quote for safety reinforcements." Typical scam. So I handled it myself. My stomach dropped. "You installed it?" She shrugged. "How hard can it be? Bolt, screw, tighten. Honestly, men always act like you're building rocket ships. Besides, I had my husband hold the ladder. It's perfectly fine." Eli looked up at me, uncertainty clouding his excitement. "Is it dangerous, Uncle?" I forced a calm smile. "Let's check it out first, okay?" Karen rolled her eyes so hard her hat shifted. "Why don't you keep kids like him off it for today?" Her voice lowered, but not enough to escape my hearing. "They're just liability magnets." Something cold and furious twisted in my gut. The playground noises faded, leaving only the blood rushing through my ears. I straightened, my height forcing her to tilt her head back. "Say that again." She smirked, adjusting her sunglasses. "I said it's a liability. If he gets hurt, guess who gets sued? Me. The HOA. We can't afford to make everything disabled friendly, you know. People need to be realistic." Nearby, a mother pulled her toddler away, eyes wide with disgust at Karen's words. Another father shook his head and turned back to pushing his daughter on the swing, avoiding eye contact entirely. Karen noticed, her smirk faltering for half a second before she barked, "This is none of your business. The equipment is safe enough." I crouched again beside Eli, who now stared at his lap, fingers tracing the Captain America shield on his shirt. "It's okay, buddy," I whispered. "We'll try something else today." His voice trembled. "I just wanted to be like them." I swallowed down the rising burn in my throat. I lifted his chin so his eyes met mine. "You are braver than any kid here, champ." Karen clapped her hands together sharply, forcing the attention back to her. "If you're done disrupting the playground, kindly move along. Others want to use it without you scaring them about nonsense." I stood, positioning myself protectively between her and Eli. "You're going to get someone killed with your shortcuts." She tilted her head mockingly. You think you know better because you read a few online forums? I'm the HOA president. I make the decisions here. Don't like it? Move out. The arrogance in her voice struck deeper than any insult. It wasn't just her indifference to regulations or her casual cruelty towards Eli. It was the knowledge that she believed herself untouchable, ruling this little suburban kingdom with an iron clipboard. "Come on, champ," I said, gripping his wheelchair handles. As I turned him away from the slide, its frame creaked again in the breeze. Karen remained rooted by the steps, tapping her pen against her teeth with smug satisfaction. Each push of the wheelchair felt heavier than the last as we rolled away. My mind churned with dark possibilities. If Eli had climbed that slide, if the bolts failed under his weight, if that steel platform had buckled while he tried to steady himself. I stopped at the edge of the park path, taking one last look back. Karen was now on her phone, laughing about something, her sunglasses reflecting the sun's glare like twin mirrors of disdain. She thought this was over. That I'd leave, tail tucked, and accept her playground death trap. But she didn't know who I was. Didn't know what I did for a living. Didn't know the full extent of my federal authority to dismantle frauds like her and make sure no child ever paid the price for her arrogance again. And as I pushed Eli home under the fading orange sky, I swore to myself that tomorrow, she would begin to understand exactly who she had crossed. The morning sun rose behind slate-gray clouds, casting long shadows across the neighborhood as I jogged down the quiet street toward the playground. Each rhythmic slap of my shoes against the pavement pounded in sync with the anger simmering in my chest. Birds chirped in the trees overhead, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath their branches. When I arrived, the park was empty except for the hum of insects waking in the grass. I slowed my pace, sweat cooling across my back, and approached the playground equipment with purpose. The slide loomed silent and menacing in the dim light, its yellow plastic dull under the cloudy sky. I crouched by the base, brushing mulch aside with gloved hands. The deeper I dug, the worse the truth became. The metal anchoring brackets were barely buried, sitting crookedly on crumbled concrete pads. Some bolts were rusted through entirely, eaten away like hollow reeds. Others were tightened only halfway, their threads exposed to the elements. I pressed my palms to the footings and pushed. The entire slide rocked forward a fraction of an inch with a creaking metallic protest. A chill rippled down my spine. A child's weight would be enough to snap these weakened supports. Eli could have died yesterday. Any kid could die today. I rose slowly, brushing soil from my gloves, and glanced across the park to the houses lined up in neat rows beyond the fence. Curtains fluttered as early risers moved through their kitchens, making coffee, packing lunches, blissfully unaware of the death trap towering over their children's laughter. Pulling my phone from my armband, I began recording. I filmed every corroded bolt, every warped bracket, narrating softly. The camera captured my shaking fingers as I pointed out rotting wood and split anchors. When I finished, I uploaded the video to a secure folder and dialed the HOA emergency number listed in last month's newsletter. Karen answered after 3 rings, her voice thick with irritation. "Yes. It's me," I said. "The slide is unsafe. I'm looking at it right now. You need to shut down the playground immediately before someone gets hurt." She exhaled a sharp, mocking laugh. "Are you seriously calling me before 7 in the morning for this nonsense again?" "It's not nonsense," I said. "These bolts are rusted through. The anchors aren't even sunk properly. You didn't use reinforced concrete. Did you use any concrete at all? God, listen to yourself. You sound insane." "Of course I used concrete. I'm looking at exposed dirt under a warped bracket." Pause. Then her voice shifted, taking on a venomous edge. "You're trespassing on HOA property. Leave immediately or I'll report you for harassment. You're going to get someone killed, Karen." "Goodbye," she spat, and the line clicked dead. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at the playground. A breeze picked up, rattling the loose bolts against their brackets with a hollow clinking that set my teeth on edge. Birds scattered from the oak trees as I pocketed my phone and turned back down the path toward my house. 2 hours later, I sat at my kitchen table with Eli beside me, helping him with his morning math drills. He scribbled shaky numbers into his workbook, his tongue peeking from the corner of his mouth in concentration. My laptop sat open next to us, email notifications pinging one after another. Parents forwarding the HOA's new message. I opened it. At the top was the HOA crest, followed by bolded text. "All residents are hereby notified that the playground equipment has been inspected and deemed 100% safe and up to HOA standards. Any rumors regarding its safety are unfounded and harmful to community morale. Residents are advised to avoid spreading misinformation. HOA President Karen Whitmore. I clenched my fist so tightly my wedding ring dug into my palm. The taste of copper pooled at the back of my tongue as I swallowed hard. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Rachel, a mother 2 streets down. Did you see this? I'm scared to take Maddie there now. What do we do? Before I could type a reply, another message arrived from Alex, whose toddler had nearly fallen from the warped stairs last week. This is insane. She's lying. But we can't afford legal fights right now. Each message was laced with fear, resignation, or frustration. Parents trapped by her tyranny. Their children trapped by her negligence. I closed my laptop, trying to keep my breathing calm for Eli's sake. He finished his equation and looked up at me, smiling proudly. Did I get it right, Uncle? I forced a smile and checked his work. Perfect, champ. The doorbell rang, a harsh buzz cutting through the quiet kitchen. Eli flinched, pencil slipping from his fingers. I squeezed his shoulder gently before rising to answer it. Karen stood on my porch, flanked by 2 HOA board members, both men I recognized from neighborhood barbecues. Neither met my eyes. Good morning, Karen said sweetly, her tone dripping with poison. She wore a crisp cream blouse and pressed navy slacks, her sun hat replaced with a perfectly curled blonde bob. We're here to formally warn you against trespassing on HOA property and defaming the board. I crossed my arms. Defaming? I filmed what I saw. She sighed dramatically, glancing at her silent escorts before turning back to me. Let me be clear. If you continue this crusade, you will be fined for every violation we can document. Grass height, paint touch-ups, driveway cracks, unapproved landscaping. You know the drill. You'll be bled dry before you ever take me to court. I felt the blood drain from my face, replaced instantly by white-hot rage. All of this to protect yourself from liability? Her lips twitched into a smile. All of this because I can. Because you're nobody and I am the HOA president. She turned on her heel, heels clicking down my front path as the 2 men scurried after her. One cast me an apologetic glance over his shoulder before lowering his head. My fists clenched so tightly I felt my nails bite into my palms. Eli wheeled himself over, peeking around my leg. Who was that? Just some people who don't understand what's important, I said quietly, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. Are you okay? He asked, his eyes wide and worried. I crouched, forcing my voice steady as I met his gaze. I'm fine, champ. But I promise you something. No one is going to stop you from being a kid. Not while I'm here. He smiled, the shadow lifting from his face, and turned back to his workbook. As he scribbled away, I rose, staring through the kitchen window at the street beyond. Karen and her little regime walked door to door, knocking on neighbors' homes, no doubt spreading their venom and silencing dissent before it ever reached momentum. She thought she'd won. Thought she'd threatened me into submission like all the rest. But she hadn't checked the name on my mailbox. Hadn't asked what I did before I moved here. Hadn't considered that the quiet uncle with the disabled nephew might just have the power to rip her little kingdom out from under her designer flats. I pulled my laptop back toward me, typing quickly as Eli continued his sums. She thought this was over. She thought she could bully and threaten and laugh her way to absolute power. But the game had just begun. The air was still dark outside when I parked in the nearly empty federal office garage. My badge clipped to my belt caught the glow of the overhead fluorescence as I locked my car and walked briskly toward the elevators. Each step echoed in the cavernous concrete space, reverberating like the drumbeat of resolve pounding through my chest. By the time I reached my floor, I had already drafted a list in my mind: names, databases, legal precedents. My office was silent, the tinted windows reflecting the first pale slivers of dawn breaking beyond the city skyline. I flicked on my desk lamp, its warm circle of light illuminating the stack of child safety regulation manuals piled neatly beside my keyboard. Booting up my workstation, I logged into the National Contractor Certification database. My fingers moved with mechanical precision, searching playground installation permits issued to our HOA over the past year. The files loaded slowly, each loading bar feeling like an insult to urgency. I sipped black coffee from a chipped mug, its bitterness burning down my throat in silent punishment for not acting sooner. Finally, the records appeared. The playground installation contractor listed was Whitmore Safety Inspections LLC. My brow furrowed. Whitmore, Karen's last name. I opened the business license filings and felt heat rise up my neck as the document confirmed it. The company wasn't a contractor at all. It was a shell LLC registered to her husband's name. Its operating purpose: community safety consulting and HOA infrastructure oversight. No insurance. No certifications. No licensing for public playground assembly. Just a fake business, funneling HOA funds back into their own pockets under the guise of expert installation services. I exhaled shakily, staring at the screen. Every parent, every child, every resident had trusted this playground was safe. That trust had been twisted and sold back to them by a woman so arrogant she'd endangered disabled children just to save $1 and stroke her ego. Opening the HOA financial ledger, public under state transparency laws, I scanned line by line. Thousands allocated to playground safety consulting fees, followed by receipts for luxury spa packages, salon treatments, a retreat at an exclusive Napa vineyard, and professional development workshops, hosted at 5-star resorts in Hawaii. All signed off by Karen, disguised under miscellaneous maintenance categories. My jaw tightened as I read through her digital paper trail. Her greed and contempt dripped off every transaction. She was stealing from her neighbors and leaving children's lives in jeopardy to fund her manicured facade. But this time she wasn't robbing people who'd stay silent out of fear. She'd crossed into federal territory, child endangerment and infrastructure fraud, both under my jurisdiction. A knock came at my door. I glanced up to see Rob, my partner, holding 2 coffees. "You're here early, man." "Couldn't sleep," I muttered, accepting the cup. He sat down across from me, scanning my screen. "HOA again?" "Yeah," I said, clicking open the photos I'd taken at the playground. I showed him the rusted bolts, the warped bracket, the bent anchors barely gripping loose dirt. Rob let out a low whistle. "That's criminal negligence." "It's more than that," I said, pulling up the forged inspection certificates she emailed residents last week. Each bore the same digital signature. Whitmore Safety Inspections, LLC. Each file's metadata confirmed it was created on Karen's home laptop. "Jesus," Rob murmured. "She forged her own safety approvals?" "Yep. And used unlicensed installation to funnel HOA funds back into personal luxury. She thinks no one will challenge her." He shook his head. "What's your play here?" I leaned back, feeling my spine pop from hours hunched over evidence. "Public exposure first. Build pressure. Then file child endangerment and fraud charges simultaneously. She's arrogant, but she values her image more than anything. The community will turn on her overnight." Rob grinned. "Let me know if you need support on this." "Thanks," I said, meeting his gaze with a grim smile. "But this one's personal." Hours later, I returned home to find Eli waiting in the living room, his homework spread around him like a protective circle. He looked up from his spelling practice, eyes lighting up when he saw me. "Uncle," he beamed. "Did you work on your secret files today?" I chuckled softly, ruffling his hair as I sat beside him. "Yeah, buddy. I worked on them. I think we're close to solving the puzzle." He nodded seriously. "You're like Iron Man. You build plans to protect people." I swallowed against the tightness in my throat. "Something like that." He picked up his pencil again, pressing down with determination. "I'm gonna finish this fast so we can play chess before dinner." "Sounds perfect," I said, leaning back to watch him spell out each word with trembling concentration. Outside the window, the evening sun cast gold across the front yard, illuminating Karen's house down the street. I could see her on her porch, sipping a cocktail, phone glued to her ear as she laughed with shrill self-satisfaction. She had no idea her kingdom was already crumbling. That night, after Eli fell asleep, I sat at my kitchen table drafting my public post. I embedded the videos of loose bolts, the photos of warped footings, the forged inspection certificates, the breakdown of embezzled funds, and a clear explanation of why her playground was not just unsafe but a ticking time bomb of liability and criminal negligence. I typed each word with careful precision, reviewing every file for accuracy and impact. The final line read, "Our children deserve better. We deserve better. The time for silence is over." I attached every document and scheduled the post for dawn, tagging the HOA community page, City Council Safety Division, local news reporters, child protection advocates, and the homeowners themselves. My hand trembled as I hovered over the post button, not with fear but with anticipation. I clicked it, feeling an electric calm settle over me as the progress bar flashed, "Uploaded." Outside, the moon rose above the sleeping neighborhood, casting long silver shadows across lawns and silent streets. The quiet was deep, serene, deceptive. Because tomorrow this place would awaken to truth, to rage, to justice. And Karen would finally begin to understand who she had been playing with all along. The sun was barely rising when my phone began to vibrate relentlessly against the kitchen counter. Notifications flooded in, emails, texts, missed calls. I glanced at the clock. 6:04 a.m. Sipping scalding coffee, I unlocked the screen and scrolled through the chaos unfolding. Did you see this? Is this real? Oh my God, she forged inspections? My daughter almost broke her leg on that slide last week. I looked out the window. The street was alive with neighbors gathered in hushed circles, smartphones raised as they read through my evidence post. Their faces shifted from confusion to anger to outright disgust. Some shook their heads, others covered their mouths in shock. A woman sobbed quietly into her husband's chest as he held her protectively. My chest tightened with grim satisfaction. Eli wheeled himself into the kitchen, yawning, his hair sticking up in a halo of bedhead. Why's everyone outside so early? I crouched beside him, brushing his hair down with gentle fingers. Because today people found out the truth. He rubbed his eyes sleepily. Is Karen gonna be mad? I smiled faintly. Yeah, buddy. She's gonna be real mad. It didn't take long. By 7, a silver Lexus screeched to a halt in front of my driveway. Karen stepped out, trembling with rage. Her hair was pinned back in a severe bun, her makeup smeared as if hastily applied. She marched up to my porch, ignoring the murmurs and camera phones aimed her way. She didn't even knock. She just opened the storm door and screamed, "You think this is funny?" I stood calmly in the doorway, my badge clipped visibly to my belt. Her eyes flicked to it and widened a fraction before her fury reclaimed control. You slandered me. Do you have any idea what you've done? My phone hasn't stopped ringing all morning. People are threatening lawsuits. The board is talking about an emergency vote to remove me. That's what happens when you endanger lives for profit, I said evenly. What did you expect, Karen? Gratitude. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her chest heaving under her pastel cardigan. I'll sue you for defamation. I'll bury you in legal fees until you have nothing left. Good luck, I said, stepping forward. Because by the time you even file a complaint, you'll be busy with your real problems. 2 police cruisers pulled up to the curb, red and blue lights splashing across her pale, trembling face. A black sedan parked behind them, its doors opening in silent precision as 2 men in suits stepped out. Homeland Security badges gleamed on their belts. My colleagues. My team. Karen turned to face them, her confidence cracking into something desperate. What is this? Why are they here? The taller agent, Ramirez, approached with a thick file in hand. Karen Whitmore, you are under investigation for forgery of federal safety inspection documents, embezzlement of HOA funds exceeding $50,000, and endangerment of minors under federal infrastructure safety regulations. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for water. No, this is a mistake. I did nothing wrong. I was protecting the community budget. A crowd had gathered now. Mothers clutching their children's hands, fathers crossing their arms in silent rage. Phones recorded every moment as neighbors whispered angrily among themselves. Ramirez read aloud from the file. Forged certificates, unlicensed installations, funds diverted to personal luxury expenses, and multiple witness statements confirming your verbal abuse and threats to residents reporting safety concerns. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Karen shrieked, lunging toward me with eyes wild and manic. This is your fault. You ruined everything. I built this community. I made it safe. You're nothing but a cripple's babysitter. Before she could get another word out, Ramirez stepped between us and grabbed her wrists, twisting them behind her back as the other agents snapped handcuffs around them. She howled, mascara streaking down her cheeks in black rivers. The agents turned her toward the waiting sedan, guiding her firmly down the path as she struggled and sobbed incoherently. Eli rolled forward, stopping beside me. His small voice cut through the chaos. Uncle, are they taking her away forever? I rested a hand on his shoulder, feeling the tremble in his thin frame. Maybe not forever, champ. But long enough for everyone to be safe again. Across the street, neighbors began clapping slowly, the applause swelling as Karen was placed in the back of the sedan. Some cheered. Others simply stood with tears in their eyes. Relief washed across their faces like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. As the cars pulled away, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Rachel, her eyes brimming with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for protecting our kids. I nodded silently, feeling a tightness in my throat I hadn't allowed to surface until that moment. Eli looked up at me, his smile wide and proud. You're a hero, Uncle. I chuckled softly, ruffling his hair again. Nah, buddy. Heroes wear capes. I just do my job. Later that afternoon, a city work crew arrived to dismantle the entire playground structure. News vans parked along the street, reporters interviewing parents and capturing footage of the rotting, dangerous equipment being torn down piece by piece. The HOA board released a public apology, promising full refunds to residents and immediate reinstallation by a licensed contractor. I sat on the porch with Eli, the scent of fresh-cut grass mingling with the metallic tang of dismantled steel drifting on the breeze. He rested his head against my arm, eyes half closed with exhaustion from the long emotional day. "Do you think they'll build a new slide soon?" he asked sleepily. "They will," I said, watching the workers pile twisted metal into dumpsters. "And this time it'll be strong. Safe. Built by people who care." He smiled, eyelids fluttering shut. "Can we try it together when it's done?" "We will," I whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "I promise." As the sun dipped behind the rooftops, casting long golden beams across the empty playground, I felt a deep, quiet peace settle over my chest. The fight was over. Justice had been served. And tomorrow, for the first time in a long time, this neighborhood would wake up knowing that true safety didn't come from rules on a clipboard or threats from an HOA president. It came from people willing to stand up when others couldn't. And that, I thought as I watched Eli breathe softly against my side, was something no one would ever take from him again.